Hi, this is April from the Noble Garden, and I kind of wanted to do a little tomato lesson today. I've had a lot of questions about tomatoes, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the anatomy of the tomato plant, the heirloom versus hybrid, and determinate versus indeterminate. We're going to start with the anatomy of a tomato plant. So, this is a tomato plant. Hopefully I can get this close enough. The very bottom leaves down there, these are the little seed leaves that pop up when the plant first pops up. They give it enough nutrition to last for a little bit until the true leaves come. Then these big leaves right here were probably its first two true leaves. And then as more leaves grow, these are big leaves, okay? The leaves that pop up, so these are the leaves, the one that pops up in the middle, that is called a sucker, and that is actually a whole nother tomato plant. If I was to take this sucker off, it needs to be bigger than this though, but if I were to take this sucker off, hopefully y'all can see it, this little guy right here, and let it grow roots in the water, and then once the roots are in, you can either put it in a pot or put it in the ground, and you have a whole nother tomato plant. The other thing about a tomato plant is, and I know in this video you cannot see this, but if you get one of your own tomato plants, it has a hairy stem. And that's because tomato plants were actually meant to grow laying down like this, and that's roots. So that is why you'll hear people say to plant them up to about here. When I plant this tomato in the ground today, I'm probably going to plant it up to about here. And that's because everything below will make roots and make a stronger plant. And that's what you want. And that's why you bury tomato plants. So now that we've gone over the anatomy of a tomato plant, we can talk about the difference between heirlooms and hybrids. Heirlooms are your tomatoes that have been passed down from generation to generation. They have to probably at least be 50 years old. And they tend to be stable in their characteristics. They're open pollinated. So you could take a tomato from that plant and you can take a seed out of that. You could put that seed in the ground and you're going to get the same tomato plant you just got. They do have the greater flavor, but their fruit size can vary. You can get smaller fruits and bigger fruits depending on what type of fruit plant it's supposed to be. And then when it comes to hybrids, hybrids are usually two, not necessarily heirlooms, but heirloom tomatoes that have been crossbred. And usually they want to do that for certain characteristics or certain disease resistance, because most hybrids, their yield is uniform. They are resistant to some diseases, and the production is usually higher. And that's what the benefit that the hybrid give you. However, a hybrid, if you were to take a seed from that hybrid and you were to plant it the next year, you're probably not going to get the same tomato plant you just ate, the tomato you just ate. There's a big chance that you can have more characteristics of one parent than the other in the next round, because it's two parent plants making one plant. So whenever, like when you have kids, one might have blue eyes, one might have brown eyes. But then when the blue eye one produces another brown-eyed kid, just an example with genetics and everything. So you don't know what you're going to get if you were to put a hybrid seed in the ground and plant it. So now let's talk about determinate and indeterminate. So determinate is a tomato plant that is only going to make but so much yield. It usually is not as tall as a indeterminate. It does require some staking, some don't. It just depends. You have to read your packet and see how big they're supposed to get. Determinate are really good for pots of container planting because they don't get as big. However, when you go to pruning a tomato, you do not want to prune a determinate because you will be interfering with your yield. It only makes a certain amount of yield, and that's why it's good for container planting. But an indeterminate, however, just keeps growing and growing and growing. So even though you prune off, you are losing production, but it doesn't matter because it keeps growing until either the frost kills it, a disease kills it, something goes wrong with it. It'll keep growing all summer long. I mean, they can get 8 feet tall. They can get really, really tall because they just keep going. So that's the difference between indeterminate and determinate. right quick, I wanted to show you guys this. So this is one of my plants. This is an early girl. You see how it tells you it's a hybrid and an indeterminate. Some of the labels aren't this simple and easy to tell. I'm trying to see if I can grab you guys another one right quick to see if it talks the same way, because this is a bonnie plant, so of course a bonnie plant's going to say that. But you just got to read your labels. If anything, if you get a tomato plant from a local person, so this is how this one looks. Probably someone else grew this in their greenhouse. See? It says indeterminate, but it doesn't say if it's a hybrid, or you're just going to have to look it up. When you go somewhere, go ahead, when you go to a nursery, guys, go ahead and have in your mind, like go ahead and do your research and have in your mind what you want to grow. If anything, question the people there. Ask the people there. They should know stuff about tomato plants. When I talk about pruning a tomato plant, what I mean is, this is the main stem of this plant. And the top, you would never want to top a tomato plant unless you don't want it to get taller. You chop a tomato plant, it stops growing tall, and you're only going to get the production down below. You can, however, leave a sucker on if you accidentally top a tomato plant, and the sucker can take over and become the main part, because the sucker is another tomato plant, if that happens to you. But if you want to prune, you would want to take all the suckers off. Every sucker that pops up, you don't want a sucker to develop whatsoever. You make one whole stem, and that makes one tomato plant. That's common in indeterminates because they keep growing and growing and growing, and this is how you can make them grow them closer together. However, a determinate, you're not going to want to cut these suckers off because you're messing with your production. Now that we talked about determinate and indeterminate, hybrids and heirlooms, I don't say that I like one better than the other. This year, I am literally growing all four of them. I am still in the practice of trying to figure out which tomato plants I like. You don't know until you try it. Try a determinate, try an indeterminate, try a heirloom, try a hybrid. See what you like. That's the nice thing about tomato plants. There's so many varieties out there to try. So just experiment with them. See what you like. I hope you find this video helpful. I want to thank everybody for watching. And if you like my video, please like, subscribe, and share. Have a nice day.